Hello, welcome back to Rev Endurance Sports and another edition of Racing News. This is a series or a playlist where we talk about the pro peloton and maybe just some things other than just a race recap. So in this case, what I want to talk to you about is Viktor Campenaerts. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. And someone in a previous video helped me with the pronunciation of Tadej. First name, I think I'm getting it right. And then Pogača. So I think I was saying Pogačar. So Pogača. Okay, so please, whenever I am mispronouncing someone's name, please just make a comment down below. I won't be offended. I want to know how to pronounce it properly. Okay, let's get on to the topic of today. So Viktor, because that's easier for me to pronounce, he was riding a 58-tooth chainring at, and again, pronunciation, Dwars, Vlaanderen. So anyway, it's a race that was held yesterday on Wednesday. This is Flanders week. So we have Gent-Wevelgem. We had this race I'm talking about today, Dwars, sorry. And then this one's easier. Tour de Flanders is coming up on Sunday. So it's a week of Belgium racing, classics. We've got semi-classics and classics. Classics just, there is no real definition, but it's races that have begun or have been esteemed as really monumental type races. There's also the monuments, but classics are usually like 250 plus and stuff like that. Okay, so Tour de Flanders is coming up Sunday. So a lot of heavy hitters were at this Dwars race, and Viktor Campenaerts had a 58-tooth chainring. So if you don't know who Viktor is, he's got that nickname now of Mr. Arrow. And I think it's an appropriate moniker because everything that he is doing is very Arrow related. You're going to pick him out in the peloton very easily because he typically does not wear sunglasses while everyone else is wearing sunglasses. So not very good for the sunglass sponsor for Lotto Soudal. So he doesn't wear sunglasses. He rides really, really narrow handlebars. He's got those shifters turned in style that some other folks are doing. And he also believes that you should have bottles in your cages all the time. If you go back to a GCN reaction video that I had, there was some Aero Coach studies that if you're only going to have one bottle, you should have it in the back of your triangle. It just all kinds of stuff. But anyway, he is one of these guys that just really focuses on Aero. And on top of that, he was riding this 58-tooth chainring so he could attack on downhills, right? So, but let's talk a little bit more about his history. In 2019, he broke the world hour record, which was held for 3 years, certain number of months and days, by Sir Bradley Wiggins. And so let me look at my notes to make sure that I have the correct miles per hour and kilometers. So it was when he broke the record in Mexico, Aguascalientes, which basically just translates to hot waters. But he set it in 2019, a 55.089 kilometers, which is 34.231 miles. So if you're not familiar with the 1 hour record, it's go out as hard as you can for 1 hour on a fixed gear track type bike. So no multi-speed, and typically they used to be like a standard hour record and then an aero record. And I've lost track of where that's going now, but there are certain things that you could do and certain things you couldn't do. And of course, the GOAT, Eddie Merckx, held it from 1972 to 1984 on a traditional bike without any aero handlebars or disc brake wheels or anything like that. So anyway, so he's held this hour record now since 2019. So that's pretty significant because people were going after this hour record routinely. So, hour record, aero kind of guy, 58 tooth chainring at this race. Now, he made that front group, he made that selection. He was with Mathieu van der Poel and Pitcock and a few other people. And in the post-race interview, they were asking about, how was Viktor getting away from the group, and they then said, oh, he had a 58 tooth chainring. And of course, Pitcock says, oh, well, I was on a 53. So I did some quick math and I made some assumptions. I'm thinking that he was either riding a 25 tire or a 28 tire. 25 maybe because he's an aero kind of guy, so he would want that tire to be very flush with the rim. That's an assumption. And then the 28 tire because, well, this was a cobble type of race, but mainly smooth pavement. There was only 5 cobbled climbs, so you would think maybe he could get away with that 25. So let me give you these numbers just so you understand. A 53 tooth big ring and a 58 with an 11 tooth cog in the back. All right, so let's look at this. At 90 cadence, a 700 by 25 tire, we're looking at 34.14 miles per hour. And if you're doing, let's say, in a 37.33. So a 53 chainring, 34.14. The 58 is 37.33. So, what is that? 3.2 miles an hour faster. In a game, in a sport where races are won by centimeters, if you're 3 miles an hour faster and you can sustain that, you can push that gear, and the other guy is spun out. And just think about this. A lot of people ride a 50-34 chainring combination. That's what's called a compact chainring combination, 50-34. So if you're riding a 50 and I'm riding a 53, I generally can still pedal downhill above 31, 32 miles an hour, where maybe that 50 tooth chainring, 11 tooth cog, they've already spun out. So generally I catch a lot of people I catch a lot of people downhill because they coast and I'm just still pedaling. But that's pretty significant. Let's talk about 100 cadence, 37.9 and then 41.4. So it's like 3.5 miles an hour faster. That's significant. So I'd like to hear your thoughts. I mean, where is this going? These massive chain rings. If we look at people like Filippo Ganna, he will time trial with a 58 or a 60 tooth chain ring. And the goal here is to have these much bigger chain rings with the cassette in the back, so they're not all the way down to their 11. So it's been studied a lot now that larger rings and larger cogs in the back are more efficient. And so at some point we'll have that discussion about 1x drivetrains and 10-tooth cogs and all that stuff. But the 10-tooth cog is not as efficient as an 11-tooth cog. And if you have a 58 or a 60 up front, you won't even be in that 11. You might be in the 12, 13. So they're looking for that efficiency when they time trial. One thing to consider as well is as that front chain ring gets larger, usually the Shimano Max tooth capacity for smooth shifting is 16 teeth. So that means if you have a 58 tooth chainring, your inner chainring's a 42, so you're going up these Belgian cobbled climbs, 15, 16, 20% pitches, and the smallest chainring you could have is a 42 because you want to have that 42, 58 transition to be smooth with the Shimano stock front derailleur. So that's, if you go for the high top end speed, then you're compromised maybe on the rear, on the really steep climbs. And what cassette are you running in the back now to compensate for that 42 instead of a 39 like everyone else? These guys are the pros. They're pushing 500-600 watts up these climbs anyway. But just a point to consider. And so, Viktor's this 30-year-old. He's, 5'8", so 1.73 meters and 159 or 72 kilograms. So as he's going downhill, he's not that heavy. So he's using mechanical advantage to get a little bit faster down the hill. So let me make sure I've covered everything here. Well, and just so we know what Sir Bradley Wiggins, his world hour record was 54.5, and then Campenaerts beat it by 55.089. And of course, the GOAT, he held, so it was 49.4 kilometers and 31 miles. Now, he held that for 12 years, which I think is just freaking amazing. Most of these have been falling every couple of years. But, okay, the chainring, if you're interested in going out and sourcing one, the chainring is a 58 tooth from Rotor, so all the decals were covered up. And it was on a Shimano drivetrain, so a Shimano 12-speed crankset. So there you go. I think for some bikes, you might have a challenge getting that 58 tooth chainring on because you just can't bring that front derailleur up high enough in the Brazon for carbon frames. There's an episode or a video where I've talked about clamp-on front derailleurs that you can slide up and down the seat tube anywhere you want, and you can have these massive chain rings or really small gravel type chain rings of like a 46/30. Okay, that's all for today. But please, I want to hear where you think this is going with these massive chain rings, and what's the limit? What's the limit? So, thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you up the road.